O'Reilly was talking about the current controversy we've got right now on the status of the press under President Trump and whether we actually have a free press, which he defines in an incredibly interesting and unique way. Let's watch.
Senator McCain apparently believing that the American press is, quote, free. But is that true? Many Americans believe that the national media has now become an arm of the Democratic Party. That is, they don't coordinate with the Democrats, they're not attending meetings, but their sympathies are simpatico with the party. On television, the overwhelming number of newscasters are liberal. It is not a stretch for any fair-minded person to believe that the national media leans heavily left and despises President Trump, not willing to give him a chance or any benefit of the doubt. Surely that's what's going on. Surely. Some believe that the Fox News channel is not fair and free. I dispute that, pointing to analysis of our on-air personnel. We put forth both sides. Summing up, if the American press wants to regain respect, it needs to ditch its outwardly liberal bent.
Dispute that. We put forth both sides.
I mean...
Okay, well, Corey Lewandowski fucking worked for CNN. What do you call that, Bill? Kayleigh McEnany or whatever, who has never, ever said anything bad about Trump. Jeffrey Lord, who thinks the KKK is a left-wing organization. All these people are being paid by CNN to give you Trump's version. You just said it's free as long as we present both sides. They're not even just saying it, they're paying to make sure that it happens. So by your definition, they are free.
Also, he's just got it totally wrong. I mean, there is a point to be made that, again, if you took most, I suspect, most print reporters, bear down their politics, they're left of center, right? I don't dispute that for a second. I think that's a win, right? To me, that means people who are engaged in the daily exchange of ideas have come to a conclusion of which side is more likely to be right than wrong. But again, it's not hard to take that out of your reporting. It's not hard. People may think it's hard. It isn't hard. You frequently bend over backwards the other way.
And we criticize the media for overly bending over backwards.
I did it. I did it all the time. I did it where I'd be like, oh, this guy's lying and he's a fraud, but I better get his side and make it dead equal. And those stories blew, by the way, when I did that. But I didn't know better. So in the big time TV guys, I don't even think it's true. And it doesn't matter because you think Wolf Blitzer's a big liberal? You know, I don't know. I have no idea whether I see no evidence whatsoever of that. And what doesn't occur to Bill O'Reilly is that, God, is there something wrong with Trump? Like maybe we have reached a point where no matter what side you're on, that you sense something, it's a grave, grave mistake has been made with this guy, and that this guy poses a danger, however you want to define danger, to the fabric of many of the things that we hold dear in America, and that therefore we should be alarmed about that. That doesn't make you a liberal, it makes you an American, a sentient, thinking American who is simpatico with American ideals.
He has allotted himself that one word. If any liberal had used that, he would criticize him as being an elite that's out of touch, but he's allowed to use that one word.
Yeah, so I mean, but again, you're crying saying that this is the only reason there's criticism of Trump is because the media is liberal. I got news for you. The media, as we know, the media was fairly hard on Hillary Clinton. And his data is, and how does he know that Fox is fair and free? Are on-air personnel. Not a study, because every study says Fox is right-wing. And every study says that Hillary Clinton was treated, I won't say unfairly, I will say clearly negatively by the national media.
Let's go into that, though, because I think the reason, if you look at the polls, they've done analysis of all the different channels. What is the percentage of the stories about X candidate that are positive versus negative? And overwhelmingly, the stories about Hillary Clinton were negative. And the stories about Trump were negative, and the stories about every candidate were negative because they have a bias towards presenting stuff that's interesting and controversial and, ooh, is this going to hurt them? That's way better than simply doing a story when they had this position on trade. They're not going to cover that, and it doesn't really matter if it's a liberal or if it's a conservative. And that's why they're incredibly critical of all of them.
Yeah, and that's why what beats that is a cult of personality that Trump had and Hillary didn't. That's what won that election. And a million things won it, but if Trump had
No, you're not allowed to acknowledge multiple things. Regardless of who you are, you choose one thing and then you attack anyone who says otherwise.
Trump's ability to turn the negative into a positive with followers was an incredible positive for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
This magic ability that he has to communicate. He's again, I think I mentioned this earlier. He's a huge fraud.
Yeah, you did.
But he is a skilled communicator in his very peculiar manner of communicating. It works, and it is
who else would say the exact thing that's written on the screen next to them? Just totally in line.
so
a
weird
teleprompter for the audience.
But man, does Bill O'Reilly have this wrong. And Fox, every independent study, every Pew Research study has found the incredible bias that Fox has, the lack of bias elsewhere. But what we know is that real progressive ideas, other than socially progressive ideas on social issues like gay marriage, right, of which the national media came around on, but social progressive economic issues are treated as if they are sheer lunacy in the mainstream media on a consistent basis.
Regardless if it's MSNBC or Fox, it doesn't matter.
Right, even though we know most Americans think those are, when they agree with them, as do thousands of economists. So Bill O'Reilly's assessment that, hey, look, I checked in, I looked at our staff, and we're fair, as opposed to studies. And again, you're right about overall coverage of candidates is negative, but it was overwhelming to Hillary. And maybe, and those on the right would say, maybe justified, right? I don't think it was all justified, emails spare, right? But some of it was justified, no question. And the Trump coverage is justified.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you have if there was a tape of Hillary Clinton saying that she likes to grab women by the pussy, I would have covered it.
I would have buried it. I would have buried it because I've sold out.
Exactly. You're being
paid for.
I would have discussed it. Keeping it real.
You can help hire investigative reporters that'll chase down stories no one else will. Be the media. TYTnetwork.com/go.